Hello? Okay, there we go. I think that's working. How's it going, everybody? Today we're jumping into Revelation chapter 8. Let me make sure we're not lagging here. Camera's a bit glitchy. Let me fix that. No lag, though. That's good. I think that's okay. Let's do, let me get the screen up. The text up, I mean. There we go. All right. So we've been making our way through Revelation. Revelation has been like what I thought it was going to be. We're taking our time through it because there's a whole lot of metaphor. There's a whole lot of symbolism. And we're seeing multiple different interpretations. So it takes a bit to break down and understand. And I'm not even saying that we're fully understanding when we're going through this. We're definitely going to be coming back. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to understand the book of Revelation my first go through, right? We're going to have to go back, come back around and read it again. So definitely be making individual videos on specific topics. But today we're talking about the 7 trumpets. Yesterday we were talking about the 7 seals. So we finished the first 6. Today we're going to start off with the 7th and the last seal, and then move into the first trumpet and go on from there. So let's get started.
When he opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. And I saw the...
Okay, so literally there was a moment of silence after the Lamb, Jesus, opened up the 7th seal. Because this is what we've been waiting for. Each of the seals were predecessors to the actual scroll. Like the first seal, there was something. Second seal did something. Third seal did something. Fourth seal did something. Now that the 7th and final seal is removed, the scroll can be read. So this is the moment that it's all been building up to the point where they gave him a moment of silence. Okay, let's see what's in the scroll.
7 angels who stand before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. Then another angel, having a golden censer, came and stood at the altar. He was given much incense that he should offer it with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense with the prayers of the saints ascended before God from the angel's hand. Then the angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, and threw it to the earth.
This is interesting because according to Paul, we've done away with the ritualistic law, right? The sacrifices, the burning of incense, all that stuff. But we're seeing it being taken place in heaven, according to John's vision here. And John was much more conservative when it came to the law than Paul was. So I don't know, I'm just pointing that out. Again, something we can look into further, the ideological differences between Paul and John. That's why I kept wishing as we were reading, we would see more from the 12 so we can get their perspective versus Paul's perspective, because Paul didn't spend time with Jesus, but Paul also did have that big picture thinking that Jesus had. So I don't know. We did get some from Peter, but he didn't say anything really against what Paul was saying, and it wasn't much, right? The books Peter wrote were pretty short. There was nothing, nowhere near as substantial as what Paul wrote. So I wish we had more of what some of the other apostles wrote, so we can get a more, I guess, holistic understanding. than just Paul's perspective. I would like to see some of the others' perspectives. I mean, we got a bit of John's, but I would like to see more, you know?
And there were noises, thunderings, lightning, and an earthquake. So the seven...
But the reason why I paused it was, what do you make of that? Golden altars, incense, and all of that happening in heaven. Because if that's occurring in heaven, why are we not continuing to do that today? You know, the reason why is because of Paul's message, right? So the fact that the ritual laws are done away with. That's, again, something we can look into further.
7 angels who had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. The first angel sounded, and hail and fire followed, mingled with blood, and they were thrown to the earth. And a third of the trees were burned up.
Wow. So we got a fourth of the people that were of the planet that were destroyed by the death, and then now a third of the trees. And let me go back it up here real quick. How many angels were there? I don't think it made a specific, it gave a specific number. Oh no, 7 angels. And I saw 7 angels who stand before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. Then another angel having a gold censer came and stood at the... Okay, we saw that. Then the angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, and threw it to the earth. And there were noises, thunderings, lightnings, and an earthquake. So the 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. The first angel sounded, and hail and fire followed. I wonder if the censer that was thrown down had any effect on earth actually, or was it just to announce the trumpets that were about to be blown? So, and hail and fire, well, we saw, I guess, the thundering and all that stuff. And hail and fire followed, mingled with blood. Is that because the blood and the hail and fire collided with animals and people on earth, causing blood, obviously? Or was the hail already mingled with blood as it was falling? And they were thrown to the earth. It seems like they were already mingled prior to being thrown. Hail and fire followed, mingled with blood, and were thrown to the earth. So blood was also thrown to the earth. And a third of the trees were burned up. And if so, whose blood? All green grass was burnt up. So utter destruction. Vegetation struck. Let me pull up a commentary side by side as we're going through this. Spelt that all wrong. I put 3. I want 8. Half an hour of silence is not long, but things seem long or short in their context. If a preacher were to stop his sermon and remain silent for 10 minutes, it would seem like an eternity. Since heaven is a place of constant praise and worship to God, silence for about half an hour is a long time. According to Jewish tradition, there are 7 angels who stand in God's presence. Apparently, based on this verse, that traditional idea was accurate. Okay, I'm guessing this is from the oral tradition. Okay, but then you have these 7 angels, and what about the 4 living creatures that we saw? They stood before God. I'm assuming that they're different than these angels, because the living creatures were designated separate from angels. And to them were given 7 trumpets. In the Old Testament, trumpets sounded the alarm for war and threw the enemy into panic, or they called an assembly of God's people. These 7 trumpets will sound as God's battle alarm during the Great Tribulation. Then another angel. Some say this angel is Jesus. Why? I don't know. Functioning as a mediator. And because of Old Testament references to Jesus as the angel of the Lord, I guess we talked about how some people think that Michael the archangel is Jesus. Maybe this is another reason why they would think that. Others say it could only be a mere angelic being because the specific ancient Greek word for another means another of the same kind. A golden censer. Yeah, I'm curious as to why they think it's Jesus. Maybe because it functioned as a mediator. That's what they're saying, right? The censer, it was announcing. I don't think so. I don't even see how this angel acted as a mediator, really. Only that it took place between the seals and the trumpets. It announced the trumpets. But I don't see it acting as a true mediator. A golden censer, the smoke of the incense, with prayers of the saints ascended before God. Prayer and incense are often associated in the Bible. The idea is that just as incense is precious, pleasant, and drifts to heaven, so do our prayers. So here, before anything happens to the opening of the seventh seal, the prayers of God's people come before the Lord God. Then the angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, and threw it to the earth. So this is like an answer from God. As God's people pray for the resolution of all things, their prayers were touched by the fire from the altar in heaven and then thrown back down to the earth. All things will not be resolved on this earth until judgment comes. And when the prayers of God's people come back to earth, they bring the groundswell of judgment. This reminds me of we were reading how the saints were praying to God. And God responded back saying, about all the death. And then God responded back saying, there's still more to die. There's still more martyrs. So it's reminding me of that. If the incense symbolizes prayers going up, and then the response is no, more death and more judgment is to come. So the seven angels who had seven trumpets prepared themselves to sound. We waited on the seven seals to be opened and saw them loosed one by one. But when the seventh seal was finally loosed, the end did not immediately come. It set in motion seven trumpets that would sound upon the earth. So we're still not even reading what's in the scroll. The first angel sounded, and hail and fire followed, mingled with blood. Blood may indicate the color or the result of the phenomenon described here. Again, we touched on that. I don't know if it's the result, because it says hail and fire followed, mingled with blood, and they were thrown to the earth. So it seems like the blood was mingled with hail and fire, and all three were thrown to the earth. We don't know if the hail and fire was red in color or if it brought forth red blood. But one way or another, this should be understood straightforwardly, without escaping into a creative symbolism. The truth is, if earth, trees, and grass do not mean earth, trees, and grass, no man can tell what they mean. Letting go of the literal signification of the record, we launch out upon an endless sea of sheer conjecture. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Because if you're going to argue that it's symbolic in nature, metaphorical, we don't really have any clues as to what the alternative is. So does that mean we should default to a literal interpretation? I mean, nothing here is really indicating that it is not that I shouldn't take it literally, right? A third of the trees were burned up, and all green grass was burned up. Because of this hail and fire, trees and grass are destroyed. 1/3 of the vegetation on the planet is burned up during the Great Tribulation. And that's interesting because we talked about the third seal. When he opened up the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, "Come and see." So I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 living creatures saying, "A quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine." So, inflation. And what causes inflation? Scarcity, right? A scarcity of resources would increase the price of the resources. But it's interesting that we had a scarcity of resources, or we had an inflation of price prior to the destruction of the vegetation. So maybe the seals, maybe the events aren't happening in chronological order. Maybe the seals didn't already occur prior to the events being announced by the 7 trumpets. Maybe the seals were just describing events to occur. I'm not sure. What do you guys think? Do you think that the events that were announced by the different seals, do you think they've already happened by the time the first trumpet occurs? What do you guys think about that? That's interesting.
So the 7
Let me actually pull up, or I could just read it from my Bible here real quick. I'll just read one of the seals so we can get the tense that is being used. I'll read the second seal here. When he opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature saying, "Come and see." So come and see, which means it's occurring now for him to see. Another horse, fiery red, went out, and it was granted to the one who sat on it to take peace from the earth, and that people should kill one another. And there was given to him a great sword. To take peace, that people should kill one another, so not necessarily happened yet. Let me read the fourth one. So I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and the name of whom sat on it was Death, and Hades followed him. And power was given to them over 1/4 of the earth to kill with the sword, with hunger, with death, and by the beasts of the earth. Okay, so not necessarily saying that it is happening as it is being said here, as the seals are being described. The fifth seal, then a white robe was given to each of them, and it was said to them that they should rest a little while longer until. Okay, this is what I was talking about the prayers. I'll read this whole thing. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, "How long, O Lord, holy and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth?" Then a white robe, and they cried, past tense, which means John heard it. Then a white robe was given to each of them, and it was said to them that they should rest a little while longer until both the number of their fellow servants and their brethren would be killed as they was completed. So that's my question. Do you guys think that the seals took place before the trumpets? Do you think that they took place at the same time? Or do you think that we're just announcing what's going to happen and they haven't happened yet? Or are they happening as they're being announced? I don't know. What do you guys think? It seemed like we was talking in past tense there. Like they cried out. Or maybe he like present tense. They're crying out right now.
Thunderings, lightning, and an earthquake. So the seven...
The reason why I paused to check on that is because of the vegetation struck. I was thinking maybe this could have been the cause for what happened in the third seal. But then that wouldn't make sense because the third seal took place prior to the first trumpet. So that's why I was wondering about the ordering of things.
And hail and fire followed, mingled with blood, and they were thrown to the earth. And a third of the trees were burned up, and all green grass was burned up. Then the second angel sounded, and something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea. And a third of the sea became blood, and a third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed.
Then the second angel sounded, and something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea. What is that? What if that's like a giant meteor? Because it didn't say necessarily a mountain. He said something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea, and a third of the sea became blood, so it polluted the water. Did it become actual blood, or did it become like a reddish color? And a third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. I wonder what kind of ships John saw. John carefully said that this was not an actual mountain. Note the use of like, but it was a blazing mass as large as a mountain. This disaster is a cataclysm, perhaps a meteor that crashes into the earth and results in great oceanic upheaval with residual pollution. Researchers today say that this sort of phenomenon has happened before in the history of the earth, sometimes resulting in great ecological upheaval and disaster. Here, the result is that a third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. The blood may be either the cause or the effect of the widespread death in the oceans of the world. The sea may be a reference to the Mediterranean and not a reference to all oceans. In the world of the Apostle John, the Mediterranean Sea was the sea, and they really had little knowledge of other oceans. Okay. But if if that's the case, then third of the living creatures and third of the ships were destroyed. Are we talking about a third of the living creatures and a third of the ships in the surrounding area of the Mediterranean Sea, or of all the earth? Right? Maybe we're talking about only in this area. And this is a topic that I brought up earlier also. Because, let's say, talking about Joseph with a famine spread across the earth. Was it actually a famine across the entire earth? Or was it only in that region? Noah's flood. Was the flood across the entire earth? Was it only in that region? I'm not sure.
Then the third angel sounded, and a great star fell from heaven, burning like a torch.
A great star fell from heaven? Okay. If the stars, we talked about that yesterday. Hey, what if the stars are meteors? But he's specifically said a great burning mountain with fire was thrown into the sea. If they were both meteors, why didn't he say this? Why didn't he say something like a great mountain here? Or why didn't he say like a great star from heaven here? So clearly they're very different.
And it fell on a third of the rivers and on the springs of water. The name of the star is Wormwood. A third of the waters became wormwood, and many men died from the water because it was made bitter.
The name of the star is Wormwood. And the third of the waters became wormwood. We may easily associate this with a comet or meteor crashing into the earth and bringing ecological disaster. but God may have something else in mind also, right? Yeah, we try to explain it with the knowledge that we have, but all this stuff could be completely different than what we understand. John is trying to explain it the best way he could, and we are trying to interpret what John said in the best way that we can, but it might be very different. Some say the star means Attila and his Huns. Others, Genseric and with his Vandals falling on the city of Rome. Others, Eleazar, the son of Anas. You almost got me with that one. Spurning the emperor's victims and exciting the fury of the zealots. Others, Arius, infecting the pure Christian doctrine with his heresy, and so on and so on. It certainly cannot mean all these, and probably none of them. Let the reader judge, Clark says. The name of the star is... So these guys are more of a symbolic meaning instead of a literal meaning. The name of the star is wormwood. Wormwood is a very bitter substance, a proverbial for bitterness and sadness. So maybe the reason why they called it wormwood was because it turned the waters bitter. The proportion of ecological disaster stays the same. In each one of the trumpets, a third of an ecological system is destroyed in judgment.
Then the fourth angel sounded, and a third of the sun was struck, a third of the moon, and a third of the stars, so that a third of them were darkened. A third of the day did not shine, and likewise the night.
A lot of threes here. Then the fourth angel sounded, and the third of the sun was struck. A third of the moon, and a third of the stars. Okay, what was the sun struck by? What was the moon struck by? What did it look like? So a third of them were darkened. A third of the stars were darkened. A third of the day did not shine, and likewise the night. This does not describe a 1/3 lessening of light, but 1/3 of the day and night are plunged into absolute darkness. As Jesus said, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The angels... Okay, let's keep going here. We didn't get to that.
And I looked, and I heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice,
Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, because of the remaining blasts of the trumpet of the three angels who are about to sound.
We got an angel announcing the next three. These three are about to be insane. If an angel is announcing these last three, it's got to be even worse than the first 7. Not first 7. What am I saying?
Then the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fallen from heaven to the earth. To him was given the key to the bottomless pit.
Okay, interesting. Then the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fallen from heaven to the earth. To him was given the key to the bottomless pit. So now he's referring to a star as him. So we talked about, let me go back here. We talked about a great star fell from heaven burning like a torch. And then we're talking about star and referring to the star as him. So are stars angels? Is that what they thought? The stars in heaven are angels? Let me duplicate this and open up chapter 9. This is the fifth angel that sounded a trumpet. Okay. There were 7 seals followed thematically, if not chronologically, by 7 trumpets. in their arranged order, they seem similar. The first 4 seals and trumpets presented judgments directed against the earth. In the first 4 seals, these were the 4 horsemen bringing tyranny, war, famine, and death on the earth. In the first 4 trumpets, these were the ecological destruction of the vegetation, seas, fresh waters, and sky. The last 3 seals focus upon heaven, the cry of the martyrs, cosmic disturbances, and the heavenly prelude to the 7 trumpets. The last 3 trumpets will speak of hell in terms of the demonic. I saw a star fall from heaven. The text clearly shows us that this star is a person, not a literal star. But see, that's why, what if they thought the stars were people or angels? And if that's the case, then other references of stars in this context were actually angels. And we got to remember also, the stars were within the system of the earth in their worldview. Right? So this is what they thought, as far as I know. See, the stars, they're not light years away. So, and look at the size of the earth versus the size of the stars. So these stars can fall to the earth. Okay? So when they're thinking stars are falling, they're thinking these things are falling. But then now he's saying that stars, he's referring to a star as, he's personifying, right? He's referring to the star as a him. So did they believe that these were angels that were watching over us? Because we also talked about how maybe angels were set over different countries to watch over them as guardians. Michael the archangel was set over God's people to watch over them. So what if the stars in heaven are angels watching over us, right? So maybe that's what they thought. They look up in the sky and they see these lights. Maybe they thought they were angels that were watching them.
Fell from angel sounded, and I saw a star fallen from heaven to the earth. To him was given the key to the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and smoke arose out of the pit like the smoke of a great furnace. So the sun and the air were darkened because of the smoke of the pit. Then out of the smoke locusts came upon the earth, and to them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. They were commanded not to harm the grass of the earth, or any green thing or any tree, but only those men who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads.
We talked about that, the seal of God. But then out of the smoke, locusts came upon the earth. And to them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. Right? They're little tiny little insects, but we're afraid of them. But who is this star? Suggestions have included Nero, a fallen angel, an evil spirit, Satan, the word of God, a good angel, or even Jesus himself. We're all over the place with these interpretations. All over the place. In context, this star is best seen as an angel. Whether he is good or a bad angel depends on this relation to the angel of the bottomless pit. If the angel of Revelation 9 is the same angel of Revelation 9:1 is the same angel of Revelation 9:11, it is an evil angel, perhaps Satan himself. So this is the 5th angel sounded. Then the 5th angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven to the earth. To him was given the key to the bottomless pit. And they had we'll read it in context. If it is a different angel, it may be a good angel sent by God to open up this bottomless pit for the purpose of judgment. And he opened up the bottomless pit, and smoke arose out of the pit, like the smoke of a great furnace. So the sun and the air were darkened because of the smoke of the pit. Then out of the smoke locusts came upon the earth, and to them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. Okay, we didn't even get to 11. So I'll wait till we get to 11 to do that. But let's talk about these locusts on the bottomless pit. To him was given the key to the bottomless pit. That this star has fallen makes us associate him with Satan, or another high-ranking evil angelic being. Not necessarily, but I guess here. But the fact that he was given the key to the bottomless pit makes us not want to associate him with Satan. The idea that Satan is the master of hell is foreign to the rest of Scripture. He will be hell's victim, not ruler. Very different than what we see in pop culture. At the same time, we notice that the key is given to this being, and that it is given at a specific time and for a specific purpose that furthers God's plan. This angel, evil or good, serves God's purpose, even if he does not intend to. The bottomless pit. Some wonder where this is. Yeah, could it be a physical location on earth? The most straightforward answer is that it is the center of the earth, because there, one might say that all is top and nothing is bottom. However, something that the bottomless nature of the pit is symbolic. Or, according to their view, remember, how deep does this go? Maybe it goes on forever. So you can have your bottomless pit that way too. Abyssos is a prison for certain demons. The abyss. They begged him that he would not command them to go out into the abyss. For God did not spare the angels who sinned, but cast them down to hell and delivered them into the chains of darkness to be reserved for judgment. This is more probably the same place as the bottomless pit. I don't know, because God chained angels there. I mean, they could be dangling on chains there, so it might be bottomless, but it could be different. They could be at the bottom chained. I don't know. More generally, this place is considered the realm of the dead, the same as Hades. And Revelation 9:1 is a good example of how the book of Revelation is sometimes wrongly spiritualized in its interpretation. Some commentators say that the star is the word of God, the pit is human nature, and the lesson is that if the gospel is rejected, horrors are unleashed. But this is far from the plain meaning of Revelation 9:1. Yes, very far from the plain meaning. So you can see how you're starting to see, we asked the question earlier on in our study, not today, but prior, why are there multiple different denominations of the Christian church? Well, you have vastly different interpretations. So you will have vastly different belief systems based on the same material. Out of the smoke, locusts came upon the earth. But we got to keep in mind, there is a true interpretation. And that's what everybody is striving for. The thing is, everybody believes they found it. I don't even know if it's possible for us to find it with the knowledge that we have. These are obviously not natural locusts. They avoid plants and attack men like scorpions attack. They are a visual representation of the hordes of demons loosed upon the earth. The idea is simply that as part of the judgment of the Great Tribulation, God will allow demonic hordes previously imprisoned to descend upon the earth like a swarm of destructive locusts. Again, interpretation here. They are not, as some have suggested, heretics, Muslims, Turks, Saracens, Jesuits, monks, or Protestants. That's me. The seal of God on their foreheads, right? We talked about this. Those who have the seal of God on their foreheads, 144,000 and perhaps more, are protected, but none other are. This is an inescapable judgment of God. They were not given authority to kill them, but to torment them for 5 months. Let's keep going here because we're jumping into stuff that we haven't read yet.
Commanded not to harm the grass of the earth, or any green thing or any tree, but only those men who do not have the seal of God on their forehead.
So they weren't supposed to kill people. I mean, kill the animals. Like, they're not locusts. Or maybe they were locusts, which is why they were told not to harm vegetation. They had to be explicitly told not to harm vegetation. But only people. Then out of the smoke, locusts came upon the earth.
Heads. And they were not given authority to kill them, but to torment them for 5 months.
The shape of the locust.
Their torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it strikes a man. In those days, men will seek death and will not find it. They will desire to die, and death will flee from them.
Dang.
The shape of the locusts was like horses prepared for battle.
Horses prepared for battle.
On their heads were crowns of something like gold, and their faces were like the faces of men. They had hair like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth. And they had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the sound of chariots with many horses running into battle. They had tails like scorpions, and there were stings in their tails. Their power was to hurt men 5 months. And they had as king over them the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, but in Greek he has the name Apollyon.
The angel of the bottomless pit. Is this the one that had the key to the bottomless pit? Or if we think that the angels that were chained, that place is the same as the bottomless pit, is that it? I'm assuming it's the angel that opened up the bottomless pit. The angel of the bottomless pit. He opened them up. He opened it up and released these things. And they had as king over them the angel of the bottomless pit. I think that angel, it's the angel that opened them up. That's what I would imagine. In Hebrew is Abaddon, but in the Greek, Apollyon. Apollyon. Is that the same thing as Apollo? Apollo was a god of what? Apollo, one of the Olympian Apollon, one of the Olympian deities in classical Greek and Roman religion. Apollo is recognized as the god of archery, music and dance, truth and prophecy, healing diseases and the sun, light, poetry and more. One of the most right. Wait, no. He's the son of Zeus. Okay. One of the most important and complex of the Greek gods. He is the son of Zeus. Okay, so what if he is what if is he Satan? Because would Zeus be God? Because, he's the main god. So in Greek culture, would Zeus be considered God? And then Apollo be his son. Satan, like he was created by Satan. Satan was created by God. Therefore, Zeus and Apollo, God and Satan. Or could it be that Zeus is actually Satan and Apollo is the Antichrist? The reason why I'm bringing up the Greek gods, Number one, because of Apollo, Apollyon. I don't know, just trying to draw a connection there. I don't know if a connection can be drawn. And then also, hey, for honor. Also, because we talked about the idea of Greek mythology being influenced by Hebrew scripture with the Nephilim, the giants in Genesis 6. Maybe that's what inspired the Titans, or I'm not sure, you know. What was it also? Angels came down and took wives of humans. So maybe the Greek gods are like fallen angels. They married, intermingled with human women, created half-breeds, demigods. I don't know. I am going to have to rewatch as I caught the ending. Hey, Crystal, how you doing? This one is really interesting. Today's really interesting. Okay, but let's look up. I guess we can open up Wikipedia. Abaddon, the Greek equivalent Apollyon, appears in the Bible as both a place of destruction and an angel. Crystal says, I bet most of these are. Yeah, Revelation is going to be real interesting. I mean, it has been real interesting. The Hebrew Bible, Abaddon is used to refer to a bottomless pit, often appearing alongside the place Sheol, meaning the resting place of the dead peoples. Because they're saying Apollyon in the Greek, is there Apollyon? Oh, it literally means the destroyer. Abaddon means place of destruction. So he's just translating the word. So their power was to hurt men 5 months. And they had a king over them, the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon. But in Greek he has the name Apollyon. Okay, so I can see why some may think that Abaddon is the name of the bottomless pit, because it says, as they had as king over them the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name is in Hebrew is Abaddon. What name? The bottomless pit's name, the king's name. But then it says, but in Greek he has the name Apollyon. So we're clearly talking about the angel. So this angel was called the destroyer.
Abaddon, but in Greek, he has the name Apollyon. One woe is past. Behold, still 2 more woes are coming after these things.
If Apollyon in Greek means destruction, what does Apollo mean in Greek? Or Apollon? Apollo meaning a very handsome young man. Yeah, but what does the name mean, though? Apollon. Okay, he's a Greek god, but what does the name mean? Pollen like flower. That's what Crystal says. That would be funny. What does it mean? Apollo by name, Phoebus. Apollo and... That's very similar to what I just looked at. Okay, let's see. Greek word for destruction. Apoleia. Apollo's got to have some connection to that, right? Very similar. Apollimi cut off, Apoleia. Prefix apo. What is the prefix? Apo, away from. Olimi, to destroy. Apollon in Greek. I'm not sure. Maybe there's something we can look into. I don't want to spend too much time on it because I'm trying to look for a connection that may not be there. So let's keep going here.
One woe is past. Behold, still 2 more woes are coming after these things.
Whoa, whoa.
Then the 6th angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar which is before God, saying to the 6th angel who had the trumpet,
Release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates.
So the 4 angels
who are bound at the great river Euphrates, is that talking about the angel who is guarding the Garden of Eden? Because as we know, location of Eden. A river watering the garden flowed from Eden. From there it was separated into 4 headwaters. The name of the first is Pishon. It winds through the entire land of Havilah, where there is gold. The name of the second river is Gihon or Gihon. It winds through the entire land of Cush. The third name of the river is the Tigris. It runs along the east side of Ashur. And the fourth river is the Euphrates. So we know a relative location of where the Garden of Eden is, unless names were changed.
of the golden altar which is before God, saying to the 6th angel who had the trumpet,
Release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates.
So the 4 angels who had been prepared for the hour and day and month and year were released to kill 1/3 of mankind.
Dang,
Now the number
third.
of the army of the horsemen was 200 million. I heard the number of them. And thus I saw the horses in the vision. Those who sat.
We just talked about how a 4th were destroyed via death yesterday. And that seal. That 4th seal. And then now a 3rd is being killed by the angels from the Euphrates. Crystal says, okay, that sounded like an ancient chant. You're talking about all the different river names? Death will offer no escape from this prolonged torture. Their power is described as like the power of scorpions. And the bite of a scorpion, though extremely painful, is rarely fatal. Dang. See, they desire death, but death will flee from them. They'll just be being hurt and hurt and hurt and hurt. Many attempts have, we're talking about the locust here. We didn't even check this commentary. Many attempts have made to show that this is an accurate, the poetic description of natural locusts. This approach misses the obvious demonic connection. Why would God call them locusts if they are not literal locusts, but demonic spirits who swarm and destroy like locusts? Among other reasons, because locusts are agents of God's judgment. This is consistent with Old Testament figure, Old Testament figure in passages like Exodus, Deuteronomy, blah 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 blah. The repetition of like indicates something other than a literal description is intended. Like horses, like gold, like the faces of men, like women's hair. Okay. So John is just trying to describe it the best way he could, maybe. Crystal says, have they ever really opened all the seals? That's a good question. I don't know. We got to do some history, digging into some history to find that out, if that's happened or not. I don't think so. Based off what we read, like a third or fourth of the population is destroyed. I mean, scarcity on the earth, I guess we could see. Cosmic disturbances, stars falling from heaven and all that. The sky being rolled back. I don't know. Doesn't sound like it's happened yet. The repetition of like indicates something other than a literal description is intended. The total impact of this one picture is one of unnatural and awesome cruelty. Suggestions that these locusts actually describe something such as a helicopter gunship, as the helicopter gunships of the Antichrist, or a one world government are interesting but purely speculative and don't fit all the details. That's true. But I mean, I guess the sounds of the wings, the face of a man, though, I don't know about that. Wings like a woman's, hair like a woman's. I don't know about that. There seems to be no alternative to concluding that God, satisfying the age-long desire of those wicked spirits to possess bodies of their own, has created bodies for them, bodies appropriate in demonic appearance to the character of the demonic inhabitants. Yeah, we saw pictures of a representation of what they could look like based on the description John gave. Some freaky looking thing. Crystal says, and why have they not opened all the seals? Do they not have the codes needed to open them, or what? I don't know anything about codes, but maybe the time hasn't just come yet. And who's to say maybe some of them have opened? And who's to say how long in between each seal, how much time between each seal there is, you know? There's a lot of missing information. And they had as king over them. This is another indication that these creatures are not literal locusts. The Bible tells us they are tells us that literal locusts have no king. The locusts have no king, yet they all advance in ranks. Yet these particular locusts do have a king. Their king is given a name, Abaddon or Apollyon. Both have the same thought of destruction or torment. Since this is the king of these locusts, and since he has the name Abaddon or Apollyon, this is obviously Satan himself or another high-ranking leader of demons.
Day and month and year were released to kill a third of mankind. Now the number of the army of the horsemen was two.
Wait, did I... Released to kill a third of mankind. The demonic locusts earlier in the chapter were restricted to tormenting mankind, but these 4 angels have the authority to kill on a massive scale. These 4 angels have no connection to the angels of Revelation 7:1. Are these the living creatures? Oh, the 4 angels holding back the 4 winds. They may be the four angels, or they may not be. Yeah, we don't really have enough information to say which way or the other. I would imagine that they're not, because they're bound at the great river Euphrates. Whoever they are prepared for the hour and day and month and year of the unleashing of this judgment. Most of Satan's angels are yet free, being the principalities against which we wrestle, but some terrible offenders of high rank have been bound. This assumes they are bad angels, right? We don't know if they're good or bad. They may or may not be. They are probably evil angels. No matter what, they are servants of the divine purpose. The demonic locusts described earlier in the chapter were restricted to... Okay, I read that. But these four have the authority to kill on a massive scale. These angels were connected with the Euphrates River because Euphrates was a landmark of ancient Babylon. Oh, okay. So could that be symbolic, right? They're coming out of a place of sin, where sin flows like a river. It was the frontier of Israel's land as fully promised by God. It was also the boundary of the old Roman Empire, which will be revived under the Antichrist. The Euphrates is also associated with the first sin, the first murder, the first organized revolt against God, the first war confederation, and the first dictatorship. 100 million. 200 million.
Saying to the sixth angel who had the trumpet,
Release the four angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates.
So the four angels who had been prepared for the hour and day and month and year were released to kill a third of mankind. Now the number of the army of the horsemen was 200 million. I heard the number of them. And thus I saw the horses in the vision. Those who sat on them had breastplates of fiery red, hyacinth blue, and sulfur yellow. And the heads of the horses were like the heads of lions.
Revelation 9, okay.
Million. I heard the number of them. And thus I saw the horses in the vision. Those who sat on them had breastplates of fiery red, hyacinth blue, and sulfur yellow. And the heads of the horses were like the heads of lions. And out of their mouths came fire, smoke, and brimstone. By these three plagues, a third of mankind was killed. By the fire and the smoke and the brimstone which came out of their mouths. For their power is in their mouth and in their tails. For their tails are like serpents, having heads, and with them they do harm. But the rest of mankind, who were not killed by these plagues, did not repent of the works of their hands, that they should not worship demons and idols of gold, silver, brass, stone, and wood, which can neither see nor hear nor walk. And they did not repent of their murders, or their sorceries, or their sexual immorality, or their thefts.
Sounds, this is just like the judgment that occurred in the Old Testament, that Jeremiah, Isaiah, and all of the other prophets prophesied. Looks like people are going to turn back to worshiping demons, idols of gold, silver, brass, stone, and wood. Materialism. Or actual idols. Paganism. I had a feeling this was going to happen. We're going to stop here. I'm not going to do... We're not going to do 10. It's already an hour. So number of the army of the horsemen was 200 million. Is this number literal or symbolic? Because 200 million, the fact that John even thought to say 200 million is insane, because armies then were not as big as are now, you know? So to even fathom an army that's 200 million is insane. Is this number literal or symbolic? It is possible that the number is not to be taken literally, but simply suggests an army that is impossible to count and is greater than anything mankind has ever seen. Could be. That could be. Because how does he know? How does he know what a million looks like? How does he know what 10 million, 100 million looks like? How could he? You know what I mean? It's how could he even see that amount? These horsemen were described in weird, grotesque terms. This is a powerful picture of horror, destruction, and demonic association. Does this speak of natural or supernatural army? Is this an army of men or an army of demons? If this describes an army of men, then the weird description may speak of modern mechanized warfare. Again, we're trying to interpret it based off the knowledge that we have. It may be John simply describes modern machinery in the only terms he can, and the result is this weird, grotesque, terrifying account. Or literally this. Or something else, I don't know. Crystal says she's going to guess symbolic. Could be symbolic. But I don't think we should think like, hey, a literal interpretation, that's way too crazy, that can't be. I don't think we should think like that. I don't think we should just rule it out because it seems unlikely. If this describes a natural army of men, then the weird description may speak of modern mechanized warfare. Okay, well, I just read that. But a human army this size has never been seen. The total size of all armies on both sides at the height of the Second World War was only 70 million. In 1965, China claimed to have an army and militia of 200 million, but this was doubted by many. I heard that. The army of 200 million coming out of the east, foretold by the Bible. I've heard people say that. Crystal says, well, good thing we are talking about this when it's close to Halloween. I know, right? It's kind of scary, this stuff. Even if such an army was assembled, it reminds me of Grima Wormtongue talking to Saruman about his army of tens of thousands. Lord of the Rings reference. So even if such an army was assembled and marched towards the west, it is hard but not impossible to see such an army killing a third of mankind, perhaps 2 billion or more. Yeah. Therefore, perhaps the safest interpretation is to see this as a literal 200 million strong army, but a demonic army invading the earth. This continues the idea of the demonic army like locusts described earlier in the chapter. Man, imagine these things charging at you. That's crazy. They painted them as like Chinese looking. Because of where is it? Because of this. I told you there are people who thought that 200 million could be fulfilled in that way. That's interesting. But the rest of mankind were not killed by these plagues. But the rest of mankind who were not killed by these plagues did not repent. In general, mankind showed no repentance despite the presence of some pretty overwhelming signs and wonders. Exactly the same way as it was in the Old Testament. They were so far gone that God tried to push them into a situation where there was only one way to turn, to Him. But they still didn't turn because they were that lost. They forgot about Him. They forgot about Him, therefore, they didn't even look at Him as the last resort because He wasn't even in their minds. Same thing happening here. That they should not worship demons and idols. Instead, man continued with his idol worship in a business as a usual sort of way. They continued in their worship of demons, whether their worship is witting or unwitting. And they did not repent of their murders or their sorceries or their sexual immorality or their thefts. They maybe didn't even see anything wrong in what they were doing. They were so far gone. This list of sins is a striking accusation against our present age. Certainly, our modern world is characterized by murders, sorceries, associated with the taking of drugs, sexual immorality, and thefts. Whew. This is some heavy stuff here, man. I thought we were gonna get. I was hopeful that we might be able to get to chapter 10, but we only got through 2, and it took an hour and 14 minutes. That just goes to show how jam-packed each of these books are, and how there's just so much information that is not easily understood. So we have to dig deep and try and figure this stuff out. Crystal says, wasn't Confucius a Buddha? No. Confucius founded Confucianism, and Buddha founded Buddhism. So there are two, as far as I know, two different religions and ideologies, as far as I know. But that's going to be it for today. So many things here we can look in. We can spend days upon days upon days upon days going through the same stuff, because there's just so much, man. But that's going to be it. Crystal, thank you for stopping by and checking out today's Bible study. Taking part in the chat, as usual. But Monday, we're going to jump into chapter 10, the mighty angel with the little book. So who is this mighty angel? What is this little book? When are we going to read the scroll? We opened up the seals. We had the trumpets blasting. But what's in the scroll? Maybe we'll find out. We'll find out on Monday. But that's going to be it for today. Crystal, hope you have a great weekend. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Hope you have a great Friday also. Don't count Friday out yet. We still got a little bit more time. But we're going to continue with Revelation on Monday. So I look forward to doing that. Obviously, Revelation is really interesting. It's challenging, but interesting. So expect after we get through Revelation, maybe while we're doing Revelation, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. We'll put out some videos on individual topics, because there's a lot to unpack here. But anyways, hope you have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday. All right? Take care. Bye-bye.